Every aisle in your supermarket tells the same lie, that you have a choice. 4 companies sit behind roughly 90% of the products on those shelves. Nestlé alone controls over 2,000 brands, runs 413 factories, and pumps more than 50 billion liters of water out of the ground every year. In Michigan, a single permit lets them take 400 gallons per minute while nearby wells run dry. But here is where it gets darker. That is one company, in one state. The full network these 4 have swallowed and consolidated is something most people never see. Nestlé began as a single formula in Vevey, Switzerland, back in 1866. Today, it has swallowed over 2,000 brands and mapped its presence across 186 countries. That number, 2,000, includes everything from Kit Kat to Purina, Nescafé to Gerber, Maggi to Perrier. Each sits on a different shelf, wrapped in a different story, but all send profits to the same headquarters. The illusion of choice is carefully engineered. Nestlé's network sprawls across 413 factories worldwide. These aren't just buildings, they are nodes in a supply chain that reaches into almost every kitchen on the planet. Last year, the company reported more than $95 billion in revenue. That's more than the GDP of some countries. But what they don't want you to know is how this scale translates into control over resources, over markets, and over communities that have no say in the process. Take water. Nestlé's thirst is legendary. The company withdraws more than 50 billion liters every year, bottling it under names like Pure Life and Ice Mountain. In Michigan, a single permit allows Nestlé to extract up to 400 gallons per minute from the ground. That is 400 gallons every 60 seconds, while some local wells run dry and neighbors are left hauling water by the jug. The permit fee is just $200 a year. For residents in Osceola Township, the numbers aren't abstract. They have watched the water table fall, seen creeks shrink, and heard the endless rumble of tanker trucks heading for the bottling plant. One community leader, hands calloused from years on the land, put it simply: "We are told to conserve, but they can take as much as they want. Our wells go dry, and there is nothing we can do." But here is where it gets darker. That is one permit in one state. Multiply that by dozens of sites across North America, then by hundreds worldwide, and the scale of extraction becomes almost invisible, except to those who live next to the wells. The rabbit hole goes deeper. Nestlé's reach is not just measured in brands or bottles, but in every corner store, every supermarket aisle, and every policy that lets water flow upward toward profit, while scarcity trickles down. 4 companies. One global food system, consolidated and controlled, and most people never see the strings. PepsiCo did not just conquer the soda aisle. In 1965, it swallowed Frito-Lay, fusing cola with chips in a merger that rewrote the rules of the supermarket. That deal did not just add a few snack brands, it built an empire. Today, PepsiCo's reach stretches across 200 countries, with 315,000 employees moving products through more than 200 distribution hubs and over 40 snack plants. Pause. Last year, the company reported $86 billion in revenue, more than half of it from snacks alone. But here is where it gets darker. PepsiCo controls 39% of the US salty snack market. That is more than 1 in 3 bags of chips sold nationwide, from Lay's and Doritos to Ruffles and Cheetos. The shelves look crowded, but the power belongs to one company. This is not just about brand names. It is about who gets to play it all. Retailers do not hand out prime shelf space for free. Slotting fees, payments just to get on the shelf, can run as high as $25,000 per product, sometimes far more for the best spots. PepsiCo, with its deep pockets, pays up front and locks in premium placement, squeezing out smaller rivals before the competition even starts. Contracts in the company's own 10K filings spell it out. Promotional allowances, category management, and volume rebates are all part of the deal. If you cannot pay, your product goes to the back, or disappears entirely. For independent snack makers, the cost is personal. One regional tortilla chip founder remembers the day the phone stopped ringing. Their brand had built a loyal following across the Midwest, but after a national buyer consolidated shelf space for PepsiCo's Doritos and Lay's, sales collapsed, falling by 85% in a single year. Pause. The company's trucks still rolled past the same stores, but their chips never made it inside. The founder recalls that they went from growing every quarter to fighting just to survive. It did not matter how good the product was. If you are not on the shelf, you do not exist. The illusion of choice is carefully maintained. PepsiCo's snack division alone boasts over $22 billion brands. Even SodaStream, acquired in 2020 for $3.2 billion, now sits quietly in the portfolio. Another point of entry into homes that think they are buying outside the network. The rabbit hole goes deeper. Slotting fees, category captain agreements, and private label manufacturing all reinforce the same hidden power structure. 4 companies, 1 system. Every crunch, every sip, engineered to lead back to the same handful of boardrooms. What is really in your pantry, and who put it there? Unilever didn't just absorb Ben & Jerry's in 2000. It rewrote the playbook for how a global giant can own a brand while keeping its rebel image intact. The deal, worth $600 million, came with a twist. Ben & Jerry's would remain a separate legal entity, its social mission protected by contract. The ice cream still came in tie-dye tubs, the founders' faces stayed on the label, and the Vermont headquarters kept churning out flavors with names like Cherry Garcia and Fish Food. But the profits, the supply chain, and the global expansion all flowed into Unilever's vast network. This is not an isolated case. Unilever's filings show more than 70 ice cream brands under its banner, from Magnum and Breyers to Walls and Popsicle. That's more than any other company on Earth. Each one preserves its own identity, its own story, its own promise of choice. Yet every pint, bar, or cone ultimately sends revenue to the same parent. In 2023, Unilever's global revenue reached $52 billion, with ice cream alone accounting for a massive chunk of that total. Why keep up the charade? Because the illusion of independence keeps customers loyal and regulators at bay. The Ben & Jerry's carve-out is written into the acquisition filings. The brand's board has the final say on social mission decisions, but Unilever controls the manufacturing, sourcing, and international rollout. The rabbit hole goes deeper. When you reach for a pint in the freezer aisle, are you really supporting a small batch Vermont icon, or just another node in a multinational's empire? 4 companies, 1 system. The mask of variety, engineered to keep the power structure hidden. Coca-Cola doesn't just sell soda, it orchestrates a global web of control that stretches far beyond the red can. Take a breath. 43.7%. That is Coca-Cola's share of the worldwide carbonated soft drink market. But the real power is not in direct ownership of factories or brands. It is hidden in the company's vast franchise bottling system, a network of more than 900 bottlers, each technically independent, but bound by contracts that dictate everything from recipes to regional marketing. The Coca-Cola Company produces the secret syrups and licenses the brand. Bottlers buy the concentrate, mix it with water and sugar, and then distribute the finished drinks to stores, restaurants, and vending machines. These bottlers range from local family businesses to massive public corporations, but each answers to Atlanta, where the parent company controls the terms. Pause. Nearly every bottle of Coke, Sprite, or Fanta you see, no matter where you are, moves through this invisible channel. This arrangement means Coca-Cola can report tens of billions in revenue with a much smaller physical footprint than its rivals. The company spent more than $4 billion last year on marketing alone, saturating every continent with its brand, while bottlers shoulder the costs and risks of production. The illusion of independence is reinforced at every level. Bottlers may appear to compete or operate locally, but their contracts ensure that the formula, pricing, and even the water source are set by headquarters. But the rabbit hole goes deeper. In 2019, Coca-Cola swallowed Costa Coffee for $5.1 billion, instantly becoming a major player in the global cafe market. Suddenly, the same company that dominates soda is pouring lattes on high streets from London to Shanghai. What does it mean when the world's largest soda maker can pivot, overnight, into coffee, tea, and bottled water without ever owning most of the plants or shops that carry its name? 4 companies. One system. The mask of variety, engineered to keep the power structure hidden. Walk into any supermarket, and the illusion is immediate. Aisles packed with color, variety, and promise. Pause. 40,000 products, each fighting for your attention, but the contest is rigged long before you arrive. Getting a single product onto those shelves can cost a manufacturer up to $25,000 in slotting fees, just for the right to exist at eye level. Multiply that across every flavor, size, and package, and the price of entry becomes a barrier only the giants can pay. The rabbit hole goes deeper. Retailers do not just take money for space, they sell control. Behind closed doors, the largest suppliers are invited to become category captains. These companies do not just stock their own brands, they design the planogram, recommend which competitors get prime placement, and sometimes even decide which rival stock-keeping units are dropped. The same hands that fill the shelves also write the rules of the game. But here is what they do not want you to know. More than 75% of what you see in a typical store can be traced back to just 4 companies. Traceability is not a technical term. It is a business reality, enforced through contracts and data-sharing agreements that make every barcode a breadcrumb leading back to the same boardrooms. Private label manufacturing blurs the lines further. The cereal that looks like a store brand may have rolled off the same line as a major name. The Federal Trade Commission's own workshop on slotting allowances called out this system as exclusionary, locking out newcomers and cementing the dominance of those who can afford to pay. Pause. In a store with 40,000 stock-keeping units, the number of real decision-makers can be counted on one hand. 4 companies. One system. The illusion of choice, engineered aisle by aisle, contract by contract. The rabbit hole goes deeper. Who decides what is on your table and what is missing? In Indonesia, the rainforest falls to the sound of chainsaws. Pause. 50,000 hectares, an area nearly the size of Los Angeles, disappear each year to feed the world's appetite for palm oil. The trees don't just vanish. They're cleared for plantations that supply Unilever and its rivals, fueling everything from ice cream to instant noodles. Orangutans lose their homes. Carbon stores are burned into the sky. What they don't want you to know is that the world's largest food companies have pledged to end deforestation for years. Yet field studies by NGOs show bulldozers still move faster than promises. But here's where it gets darker. The cocoa in your favorite chocolate bar often comes at a human price. In the fields of Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire, more than 2.1 million children work the harvest, some as young as 5, swinging machetes, hauling sacks, exposed to pesticides. Pause. The numbers don't live on spreadsheets. They live in villages where school is a distant dream and a day's wage is measured in coins. One cocoa farm family, 3 generations deep in the same soil, describes how the buyers come with clipboards and quotas, but never enough to lift them from poverty. The father looks at his hands, scarred, calloused, and wonders how much of his labor ends up sweetening a Kit Kat or a can of chocolate milk. The rabbit hole goes deeper. 4 companies. One system. The illusion of choice, engineered on the backs of invisible workers in vanishing forests. Who pays the real price for what's on your table? Water is not just another ingredient. It is the silent currency behind every snack, soda, and frozen meal in the supermarket. For the world's biggest beverage makers, the math is simple, but staggering. Producing a single liter of soda or bottled water requires an average of 2.7 liters of fresh water at the source. That means nearly 2/3 of what is extracted vanishes before a bottle ever reaches the shelf, lost to filtration, cleaning, and the relentless churn of industrial machinery. Multiply that ratio by the billions of liters these companies produce each year, and the numbers become almost impossible to grasp. Hydrology audits from bottling plants in India, Mexico, and the American Midwest reveal the same pattern. Local aquifers are drained at rates far beyond natural recharge, with extraction volumes carefully logged but rarely made public. In some drought-prone regions, water tables have dropped by several meters in a single decade, and community wells have run dry while trucks line up at factory gates. The World Resources Institute warns that by 2050, as many as 5 billion people could face water scarcity, driven not just by climate, but by the scale of industrial withdrawal. The rabbit hole goes deeper. 4 companies, 1 system. The illusion of abundance, engineered by those who can afford to treat water as a cost of doing business. What happens when the world's thirst is measured not in glasses, but in corporate profit margins? 4 companies, Nestlé, Unilever, PepsiCo, and Coca-Cola, write the rules of the global food system not just with brands, but with money and influence. Last year, the combined lobbying spend of these giants topped $100 million. That's more than some entire industries spend to shape the laws that govern them. Securities and Exchange Commission filings reveal the pattern. Millions flow to Washington and Brussels, funding campaigns to block sugar taxes, weaken labeling rules, and keep water extraction cheap. The numbers don't stop at politics. The market itself has been hollowed out. In 1980, more than 12,000 independent food processors operated in the United States. Today, fewer than 2,800 remain. The rest have been absorbed, bankrupted, or pushed out, leaving the giants to carve up what's left. The cost is not just lost competition. It's in your grocery bill. Since the first wave of mergers, the average price of staple foods has risen 250%. Over the same period, the cost of raw ingredients climbed only 80%. The gap is profit, extracted by those who control the shelf. The Bureau of Labor Statistics Price Index spells it out. The markups grow as the industry shrinks. 4 companies, 1 system. The illusion of variety, engineered by a ledger of influence that stretches from Capitol Hill to the checkout line. What does it mean when the price of a loaf of bread is decided in a boardroom, not a bakery? The rabbit hole goes deeper. Today, 4 companies still decide what fills our shelves and our bodies. As each merger consolidates control, what they don't want you to notice is simple. Choice shrinks while influence grows. Regulatory agencies often look the other way. The illusion persists, but the stakes are real. Our health, our labor, our land. The next time you shop, ask, whose interests fill your cart? Drop your perspective below.